John Smoltz was on the call, and he makes it look easy, folks. It's not that easy, but that's why John's one of the best in the business, the Fox analyst and Hall of Famer. You can watch John and Joe Buck. They call the World Series on Fox. That begins tomorrow night. Plus, MLB is airing live coverage before and after every game on MLB tonight. John, how you feeling today?
Well, I'm feeling good, especially, I'm not going to lie, especially that there's not the West Coast to East Coast travel. That would be pretty interesting when you think about the Dodgers and Tampa Bay. So both clubs get to stay here, and both clubs get to probably play their best baseball, considering there's not a lot of travel to go on.
But also how you set up your rotation and your pitching staff, that you're playing just about every day. I think there's a break after Game 2 and Game 5. But we've seen the depth take over, that you need to have those arms because you were playing every day. How does that affect the World Series, in your opinion?
Yeah, so, what the Dodgers did, or what they were capable of doing, they might have done some things a lot of people thought were a little bit outside the box and didn't have to do, but they had so much depth that it actually won over in a 7-game series where there were no day offs. This time, I think you'll have the flexibility to play it closer to the way that you would typically play a World Series. You won't need 5 starters. You may not need 4. But what I was interested to see, and played out the way I thought it would, when starting pitching, which in this playoffs was not a strength for a lot of clubs, the 2 better teams of starting pitching ended up being right where they needed to be. And I thought that the Rays, with their great bullpen, but their great starting pitching, is the reason they're there. And certainly they went full bore. They went 5 games and 7 games to get here. The Dodgers had a relatively easy route until this 7-game series, and they were pushed to the limit by the Braves in a way where I don't think anyone could have anticipated the series to go the way it did.
There's pressure on the Dodgers, but what is that like when you're expected to win?
Yeah, it's real difficult because, there's so much talk about history and what you haven't done, and you forget that the year you had was pretty good. And I think that, having lived it through 95, getting into the 95 World Series, we had lost 2 previously. And, people are starting to compare us to teams that, whether it was the Bills, which I never understood, but that pressure on you causes you to have to think about things you never would think about. You really only want to think about competing and executing. And I think the Dodgers have handled it pretty well, knowing that they had the best team, but knowing also that all eyes are on them, waiting for stories to be written about what they haven't done since 1988. And those stories are still there, but their relief is obviously greater today than it was 24 hours ago.
And it always goes back to Clayton Kershaw. He has a chance to kind of rewrite his playoff resume or the history of that. He pitched well earlier in the playoffs. Like, what is it about Clayton when he gets in these moments here? Because this is habit. It's not a coincidence anymore. What is it about these moments for him?
Well, individually, everything seems to go with that heavy weight of what the collective performances have been for him in the postseason. And what I mean by that is they're individually different, and they collectively add a narrative that, isn't totally fair, but you can understand. And if you're Clayton Kershaw, you want to shed some of that pounds that he's been carrying. And he doesn't have to do it anymore. He doesn't have to carry the franchise. He doesn't have to pitch on 3 days rest. Doesn't have to log 240 innings. And I think everybody rises to the occasion when they face Clayton Kershaw. And the pitching performance you could not have expected from Bryce Wilson, but he did it. He actually outpitched Clayton Kershaw. And the pressure builds the closer the game is, because I think Clayton depends on his intensity, and his want to is so great that sometimes I think the want to and the desire can outrun your performance. And that is just something no one could understand, because not a lot of people are in his shoes, where the world's greatest pitcher in the regular season has impossible standards to live up when it comes to the postseason. But you're right that it does fall into the execution level, and it hasn't been like it has been for the regular season.
But you find that there are certain teams, like the Houston Rockets, to me, are built for the regular season. There are teams that are built. Milwaukee Bucks were built for the regular season. When you get into that, 5-game, 7-game series where teams really do their research on you, their homework on you, you pitched with Glavine and Maddox. They were average in the postseason. They're Hall of Famers, 300 wins in the regular season. You, maybe not as dominating in the regular season, but we're dominating in the postseason. Like Kurt Schilling. Like there's certain pitchers where you go, why and why not?
I think the biggest or the easiest answer would be as perfect as those guys were in the regular season. There's a tendency that you think you have to be even more perfect, and there's no way you can. And to be that finite, you can put so much attention on the detail and forget that you are the pitcher you are. And I used to think, when you get to the postseason, the strike zone changes a little bit, the attention to detail. Nobody approaches the at-bats like they would in the regular season. Look, I watched Maddox and Glavine carve people up, and rightfully so, because their ego when they got to the box was, I'm gonna take this guy deep, and they ground out. Well, in the postseason, you change. And if you don't kind of have the stuff in the zone, it definitely makes it tougher. And I think there's a combination of a lot of those things. But the other thing is there's a lot of close games that don't go your way, and they just add to the narrative. There's been 3 significantly weird games that Clayton pitched and would never pitch again. 2 of them against the Cardinals. I think 7 runs in an inning where he had the game totally won.
Yeah.
And those things are the things that you remember, and those are probably the hardest things for Clayton to go, oh, no, here we go. But I can promise you, leading into the Braves game, he dominated. And no one, you just think about the Braves game, but he dominated in the postseason. And he really pitched much better than the results against the Braves.
Your thoughts on Mookie Betts as an all-around talent?
Yeah, he's always been that guy for me that if you had to pay a ticket to watch him play the game, you know what? I'm glad he's an outfielder. Because if he's an infielder, he'd just be another average guy in the shift. But as an outfielder, he gets to showcase his talent, his speed, his arm, rob home runs, use the speed on the bases. But if he was an infielder, he would just be another guy in the shift that we would talk about the shift and not the athletic talent of the player. And I'm telling you, he'd be a center fielder on most teams. He happens to play on a team where, Bellinger is just as good of an outfielder. And I think the catches he made, the hardest catch was the one against Ozuna. That was an impossible catch that he made look easy. The game changers are the ones you talk about. He made that catch. It was difficult for Ozuna to see if he had caught it or not and got caught in between. But the game-saving catch in the Game 7, you dream of those. You dream of a home run robbing catch that turns around the series, and the Dodgers did just enough to make the momentum switch their favor.
I had not heard that before, that infielders don't get the chance to really showcase their talent because we have shifts on just about every other batter there, whereas the athleticism can be on display in the outfield because that's where most of the balls are ending up. They're fly balls, home runs, those kind of things. Is that what you're saying about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you used to have a decided advantage when you think about traditional positioning. When Ozzie Smith was a shortstop for the Cardinals, they had an advantage over the rest of the shortstops. But now if Ozzie Smith was playing today, he'd be playing more second base than he would shortstop or in the hole. So it definitely takes away some of the athleticism of the showcasing of the individual. So no doubt an outfielder can shine.
Are you going to play golf today?
I'm not. I'm taking today off.
Wow, John Smoltz not playing golf today. Big story here.
I'm a little gassed, and we got one day off to get ready for the Rays. There'll be a heavy work day today and tomorrow, and then you'll see some relaxation.
You got a golf course there in Texas you're going to go to?
There's a ton. There's so many good golf courses here. And the beauty of being here 27 straight days is that you get a chance to visit some of those golf courses that are close. Dallas National, Trinity Forest. Yeah, there's some beautiful golf courses here.
Who do you have in the World Series?
Well, as a broadcaster, I have the Dodgers and the Rays.
Who do you think's going to win between the Dodgers
and the Rays? As a broadcaster, I don't make those predictions. But I will tell you this. I will tell you between the two teams, I still maintain, I know it's well documented that the Rays hit homers and strike out a lot, maybe don't have the highest batting average, and the Dodgers are the opposite offense. I still think that when it comes down to two great teams, two best records in baseball, I think the team that puts the ball in play the most is going to win. I really do. It has been that case for the last 15 to 19 years.
Yeah.
The Rays have a chance to buck the trend. I think they're the top third. I think they're third most strikeouts in all of baseball. They have a chance to win a World Series in that category that we haven't seen in 20 years.
Now, when the shift happens and the third base line is open, and all you have to do is lay down a bunt, John.
Yeah.
Why don't guys do that?
It's not. There's no reward for them. The clubs don't want them to do it. It's not because they can't do it. It's just that there is no emphasis on that being a priority. When the game has the ball in the air for homers and strikeouts and walks, that's what you're promoting. That's what the guys are perfecting. Look, velocity is the way it is. People will say, well, it's just not that hard. I mean, it's just not that easy. Anything that you practice is easier than if you try to do it when you've never done it before. And I think that's the difference. And when you have situations, I get nervous in the booth. I'm not pitching anymore. I get nervous in the booth in the 8th or 9th inning and see that and go, I could potentially lose a game on that, a swing by accident. But when you have the numbers that show and the players just unwillingly do it, then there's no real risk in the club defending the way they're defending.
Man, it's just it's just a different game. It's crazy. It
is. There were some situations in this series where you saw the bunt come into play more than ever. The Braves tried it a couple times. The play that the first and third with one out or less is you can't defend it. You just impossible to defend the safety bunt. You just can't defend it, and nobody really has that up their sleeve yet. Hasn't practiced that for. It's like the NBA team that doesn't play defense in regular season, and you go, okay, play defense in the postseason. Well, that ain't going to happen. You are what you are, and you have to be able to maximize the guys in their position. The most I've ever been shocked is that runners on first and second, and most clubs are teaching the guy, get the ball off the ground. They do not hit the ball on the ground because they'd rather you strike out than hit into a double play, have 2 outs versus 1 out. So that's just the way it is, and players have learned to adjust accordingly.
Does it matter when you're throwing 96, 97, 90? Like these guys, they've seen these pitches. So it's not like, when we're growing up and somebody threw gas, we're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like 95 is nothing. That's like off-speed pitches to these guys. But when does speed get somebody's attention in the batter's box?
I think when you have 2 or 3 pitches you can throw for strikes. If you've got a 98, 99 mile an hour fastball, you could throw it 20 times in a row. It could be the fastest pitch in the world. They're going to hit it. If you don't locate it, they're going to hit it. If you don't do something else to show that you can throw another pitch, you're in trouble. It doesn't matter how hard you throw.
Yeah.
The thing that's amazing to me is that when you have all this velocity and all this effort, you're just asking guys for short sprints, which I get, at this point. I still think the Dodgers do the best job of making you really earn everything that you can. They have not. It's been amazing what they do collectively. It's not like just 1 or 2 guys. So you're going to see that same discipline on display this week. And I've never seen a collective arms the Rays have. I've never seen this many filthy arms in my life. 100 miles an hour, 99, 98, and they're coming out left and right. Matter of fact, last series, they brought in 2 guys I didn't even heard of. That's how many guys they've had. And so that's why the homework I have will be, but they have the ability to mix and match with velocity, but you have to have a secondary pitch.
I think you're tipping your pitches right now, John.
I might be.
I know.
I might be tipping. I got to check the video after we're done here and see.
Yeah, I'm going to, yeah. Who would tell you you're tipping your pitches?
Well, I wish I would have learned. Someone would have told me in 2009 when I was with the Red Sox. But usually you have your collective
okay,
guys.
we have a little bit of time. Tell that story. And I stumbled upon it. I didn't mean to bring it up, but you're on the mound pitching for the Red Sox, and
well, I'm not very good at this point, trying to come back from shoulder surgery. And then it's a relief to find out when I got to St. Louis, my first bullpen session, Chris Carpenter said, "Do you mind if I tell you something?" I said, "Absolutely." He goes, "I know every pitch you're throwing." I said, "Oh, well, if you know every pitch I'm throwing in a bullpen, then everyone knows every pitch I've been throwing in a real game." And it was with my glove. And I changed that in the bullpen. And that very first game for the St. Louis Cardinals, I think I still hold the franchise record. I struck 7 guys in a row out for the Padres. And it was such a relief because I was grinding so hard for Boston. I wanted to do so well. And it felt like, now looking back, everybody knew it was coming. They were hitting balls out of the stadium. So when you're broke down trying to perform, you're thinking, well, certainly somebody could have picked that up, but it didn't happen then. And thankfully, Chris Carpenter saw it.
Do we look at the Astros differently after this postseason?
I think you have to. I mean, no one, I understand if I was a player, I would encourage everybody to just kind of be as quiet as you need to, let your playing do your talking. I think what they were able to do, they gained some respect. I don't think they gained a lot of respect from fans that still don't want to hear, give it a year. Next year, I think everything will be back to normal. They played an incredible series. And yes, they had a lot of people hoping things didn't work out for the obvious for what they went through and what they were part of. But collectively, I think they gained a lot of respect.
Thank you, John. Great job. And we'll look forward to talking to you and listening. World Series starts Tuesday night with Joe Buck on Fox. Thank you, buddy.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
That's John Smoltz.